hopefully things working. Yep.
Garcia ahead in the count 0-2. And Lindor lines it into center field. Base hit, and the Mets win the ball game. Nimmo comes home with the winning run. Francisco Lindor with the tying hit in the 5th, the winning hit in the 10th, and the Mets take the opener of the doubleheader from the Giants, 5-4.
All right, folks, welcome to the Sports Talk with Chris Heidel. Yes, the Mets win Game 1 this afternoon against the Giants, 5-4. And George, guess who's pitching at the nightcap? His name is Mad Max.
Beyond the Thunderdome.
Yeah, he's going to bring out the first time pitching at Citi Field as a home guy, not a visitor. So
I'm glad you didn't say a homeboy.
Yeah, homeboy. I'm Chris Heidel. That's George Bechera. Thanks for joining us tonight here on a wonderful Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. You're tuning in from last week. That was a fun fiasco. We're still wheeling from that situation. So we're trying
still shaking that one off.
Yeah, here at the mothership, we're trying to figure out what happened. It was a full moon. That's what someone told me.
The full moon was coming. The full moon was on its way.
Yeah, it was on its way. So hopefully this week we have some great guests coming up. Starting at 7:47 tonight, John Andrews, who is the baseball coach at my high school in Bel Air, Maryland. He's going to join us. Bel Air, the kids, the seniors, are doing great for the baseball team, and they've just got done with a tournament over Easter weekend, so they did pretty well. And then 8:05, this gentleman, John McClain, who you see him a lot on the NFL Network, or you saw him on different places, on Rich Eisen. He was on this program on Fox Sports. He used to work for the Houston Chronicle, but he retired. But he's doing podcasts, so we're going to talk about his career and well-known writer because he was on some of the NFL Network programs, and it's pretty cool to see that guy on some of the NFL top 10 list or something like that. So that's the first couple guests on the show here on the program, and around 8:15 we'll dig into the Oakland A's taking on the Baltimore Orioles with Melissa Lockard, she writes for the Athletic out there in beautiful Oakland. Have you ever been to Oakland, George?
I have not been to Oakland. I've been by the city by the bay, but on the other side of the river, on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah, you didn't leave your heart. Did you leave your heart in San Francisco?
I can't tell you what I left in San Francisco.
This is a family program. Yeah. And then Joseph Zagorski, who writes for the Pro Football, he writes books. He's from Pennsylvania. He's working on the 1973 Buffalo Bills because in that year, some guy named O.J. Simpson rushed for 2,000 yards. And the long story short there, my father and my mother were at that game against the Jets at Shea Stadium, and they told me stories how cold it was. It was 31 degrees, and they were using newspaper to keep their feet warm. So, but I asked my dad years later, did you have the ticket stub? He said to me he did a three-pointer from way downtown. That means he threw it out. It's like, way to go, Dad. Way to go. Yeah. So, first of all, George, how was your Easter?
My Easter was good. How about yours?
Mine was good. Not bad. Yeah, looked like you had a good Easter brunch. Yeah, I saw that picture of you with the sausage and I was going
to. Polish tradition is the, couple different types of sausage. You take care of it the night before and eat it cold with breakfast. So, sausage, hard-boiled eggs, of course. You got to color eggs. And my wife makes this nut roll and this kind of a bread that we call clutch. It's got a Hungarian name to it.
Okay.
So we just call it's actually kolach. Okay. But we call it clutch.
Clutch.
But that's our Sunday breakfast.
That's cool.
Her Hungarian tradition, my Polish tradition, and the two come together. So.
And George doesn't care because he got fed, right?
It's all good.
Yeah. Did you take a nap before Easter dinner, or what's the deal?
Before Easter dinner, no. I was kind of nervous. I had to cook a 17-pound ham.
boy, yeah, we had a roast beef type, like a pulled pork or a pulled roast or something like that. Yeah, I think my mother didn't really cook it real well, or my dad likes it bloody, but it was all right, and it was cool. With my niece and nephew were there. One of them, Sophia's 6, and Noah's 2, and Nicole and I got them their very own Care Bears.
Nice.
Yes, we got them
Nice.
the new ones. Sophia got the Togetherness Bear, and then Noah got the I Care Bear. And then my brother was asking me, why are they changing these Care Bears around? I was thinking, well, it's part of the new new thing they're doing. Okay, like, why do you care what happened in? He goes, well, 1982. I'm like, we're not in 1982.
Everything old is new again, and we got to make sure it's a little bit different.
Right. Exactly. So looks like tomorrow, we were talking off the air, the draft for the blue and gold spring game. So is George going to be emceeing the festivities, or?
No, that'll be Mr. Jerome Bettis.
The bus.
I was asked to step aside so that Jerome can do it.
You're asked to step aside, sir. Okay.
Anytime the bus comes to town, well, he's in town anyway. You let him run the show. So.
Mm-hmm. How big is this blue and gold football game? I know it's a spring game, and it's like points that you haven't never heard of. Like, like if you watch some of the other spring games, like one team won 115-5, and like, what?
So Chris, this is going to go back. I'm going to give you a little quick brief story here. 7 years ago, 5 or 7 years ago, the weekend before the blue and gold game, we had 6 inches of snow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The following Saturday, everyone's like, weather better be nice for the blue and gold game, right? Well, it ended up being 65, 70 degrees. And I wasn't in the media then. I come out of the place with sunburn. Okay, after the week before having 6 inches of snow on the ground.
Jesus, really?
So, well, let's fast forward 7 years.
Okay.
This past weekend, snow. And just wicked cold wind on Saturday. It snowed Sunday night into Monday. Snow off and on Monday. Then last night it snowed again.
Right.
And you want to take a guess what the temperature is going to be this Saturday?
70?
80.
80. Fantastic.
So, we've gone through our fake spring a couple times, and now we're going to try and have real spring this weekend.
Yeah, we were today here in where we are in Maryland. It was like 50 degrees or 48 degrees with the wind blowing like 30 miles an hour, and almost knocked me off the porch. Coming in the house, it was so windy.
Crazy.
And then this weekend, like you said, by next Monday, it's supposed to be 78 degrees, 80 here in Maryland. So it's like like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. And tonight we're supposed to have frost. Like a freeze warning.
We had that a couple nights ago.
Okay. So you get it 2 days before we go.
Yep. So hey, there was a little bit of history down there in Baltimore this weekend. I know that your Orioles beat the Yankees 2 out of 3 games.
Not my Orioles. It's my mother's Orioles. My
mom was like Orioles. Your local team, the local team.
Yeah.
But I have a video to share, and while this is, let me preface it. Have you ever heard of the Immaculate Inning?
Yeah, I heard about the one that. Yeah, I think I read it, that the Yankee pitcher basically only pitched like what four pitches or something like that.
Nestor Cortez had the Immaculate Inning.
Okay, let me bring
he
it up.
Strikes out this.
There's a foul straight back here.
Little Michael K on the call.
Little Michael K, courtesy of the Yankees.
Yeah. Strikeout number 8 for Cortez.
Cortez is a good pitcher. I think he was really good last year.
McKenna swings and
misses. He's dealing.
See out of your starting pitcher,
yeah.
Just attacking guys. No fear of getting hit. Pitching to each quadrant of the zone.
Strike 3. 9 strike.
Jeez.
There's Chirinos.
He's dealing.
Lob swings and misses.
0-2.
Slider cutter.
Spider cutter.
Swing and a miss. He struck out the side again.
Jeez. Wow.
Nasty.
That's awesome.
That is nasty.
Yeah, I heard a new pitch over the weekend, and I was watching the Met game. It's called a spider something. It's some kind of new. It's like a slider, but you hold the baseball with one finger, and you snap your wrist or something. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a brand new pitch that somebody just developed. It's like how many pitches do you need? You know.
So I'm reading here.
Yeah.
Kyle Higashoka.
Okay.
He takes the ball and he lobs it into the seats after strike 3.
I bet you was like looking at the fan going, can I have that back, please? Hey, I'll give you a bag.
The bidding will now begin.
Jeez.
The bidding will now begin. Imagine that. So it's just amazing. It's the 9th in Yankees history.
Jeez.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So that's crazy stuff. I mean, on Easter Sunday, throwing an immaculate inning.
Yeah, and the funny thing is the Orioles were like, it was like no score until the 8th inning. And then like the Orioles scored 4 runs or something like that and won 4-0 or 5-0. It's like,
yep.
It's like someone must be somebody took a long train back home to, I think they're in Texas. I think they're in Detroit this weekend. And that's today.
Detroit, yep.
Yeah. So someone must have been taking the bus back. Yeah.
But that's nasty. 9 strikes in a row.
Yeah.
9 pitches. The 9 pitches. That's great for a pitch count.
Right.
I mean, 9. That's unreal. So I thought that was some news of the weird that happened between the Orioles and my New York Yankees.
Yeah, I found out something. Like sometimes I do on this date in sports history and all that stuff. Did you know that in 1997 they played a 3-game series in Hawaii between the Padres and Cardinals, and they played in that old stadium that everybody was talking about. Where they played the Pro Bowl. The metal. Look at that.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess they, I don't know how they set up the walls, but that looks a little different from the football field.
It's a little different, but guess what? I mean, look at it right there. I mean, it worked.
Yeah, exactly. So they played a 3-game series, and look at the backdrop. It looks like Dodger Stadium back in the day when you used to have that thing in the back of the Dodgers. Like where the pitching, the guy with the the gun. That's not even there anymore. Like I was watching an old Dodger thing on YouTube the other day, and I was like, "What the hell happened to that backstop?" So crazy.
Hey, we got breaking news here, Chris. If you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead before we bring in Coach Andrews. Yeah, hold on. Bring it in. Breaking news.
Notre Dame just landed wide receiver Braylon James from the Ohio State University. He went into the transfer portal, and he has landed at Notre Dame. A 4-star wide receiver.
That's great. That's what they need. They need. Looks like Coach Freeman is turning everything around.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That's just it's proving it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that's a great hire that Notre Dame did. Why hire somebody outside of the organization, somebody who knows what's going on, and the players? I feel like the players are going to play for him. Yeah.
Incredible. So that's breaking news.
Nice. So let's bring in the head coach of my high school up in Hartford County, Bel Air, where my brother actually played baseball. My older brother pitched for Bel Air High School baseball back in 1996, and they won a county a city title, and I said state title, city title, whatever. But it's not bad at all. But yeah, Coach John Andrews. Hi, John. How you doing?
Great, Chris. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. I feel great to have somebody from Bel Air High School on, because, you guys are I graduated in 1999, and my brother, like I said, won the state championship in 1996. And I still remember that night. It was his graduation party, and my dad George put the photograph on the table. Like, I was like, is he dead? You know? He's like, no, he's playing baseball. He's down in Anne Arundel County. So I'm like, okay, cool. So how are you guys doing? It looks like you had a great weekend with the Lacey tournament. That thing's been going on longer since I remember I was in school, because I remember my brother had to play in that one. So let's talk about this weekend.
This weekend was unbelievable. I kind of feel like a lot of my teams, it's like we've got to go through hell before we get to heaven. Last season we started like 1-7 and we fought back. I think we finished 8-10-1. With the COVID and the pandemic, it was my first year as head coach. It was very, very difficult. But this year we started. It was difficult. I think we started 2-5 going into the weekend, and then or 3-5, no 2-5, and then we've won both games this last weekend in the Lacey tournament, which was quite substantial. I mean, we played La Plata, which was a rematch from the 2013 state championship game, where the 96 game was the first title in Bel Air history, and then 2013 it was Bel Air La Plata. And so I invited them to the Mike Lacey tournament to get that rematch and that rivalry going. And we defeated them 9-5. And then we played Archbishop Curley, that's currently ranked fourth in the state. And we beat them 12-2. So we haven't quite met that 500 mark yet. We're 5-6 going into tomorrow. We play Northeast at home. They're 10-0. And so we've got our work cut out for us tomorrow as well. But I got my ace, Johnny Wilhod. He's got 4 wins for us this season. He pitched 3 1/3 against Curley on Saturday. So we're excited to see how things go tomorrow.
Yeah. Did you take over from John Swanson, who was because my brother Matt was also on the Bel Air baseball team, and he was his coach. And John Swanson was really nice. Don't get me wrong; he was a great teacher, and I always remember when he was coach. He goes, "On a hop." He kept on saying it all the time. So I kept looking at my brother sometimes when we were at dinner or whatever. I go, "On a hop," But so did you take over for him, or who was there before? You were there.
Yes, sir. I took over the JV team in 2005, and Coach Swanson had been coaching the varsity team for, I believe, 3 or 4 years. And I got stuck behind old Coach Swanson for he retired in. Well, I told him, I said, man, you picked a great time to go out, because it was right before COVID. The year before COVID, I took over the program, and we were going into games. We had just got to, the day, I want to say it was March 13th, when everything shut down, and I got in the car and it said the NCAA tournament was out. I was like, oh my goodness. So this is serious. Yeah. But it was a Thursday, and then that Friday they shut everything down and we couldn't do anything, but that would have been my first season. So I really feel for those seniors. That's the lost season. There's some great ball players I really, really wanted to coach that I didn't get an opportunity to coach. But then the COVID year last year, we didn't know that we were going to have a season till mid-February. So I had my JV coaches, Andrew Cotton, he went out to Denver and got a job out there, and JD Brook, both of them were from the state championship teams in 13 and 16. And now my JV coaches are Nick and Jackson Rhodes, that both Nick was in the 13. He caught the last out of the 2013 game in La Plata. And then his brother Jackson was a nice lefty pitcher, first baseman, that he won in 16. So it's really cool to have guys come back and coach and be a part of the program.
That's cool. George, you got anything for Coach Andrews?
I was going to say, Coach, what's the biggest difference in baseball, in high school baseball? I played high school baseball back in 88, 89. And what is the biggest difference, would you say, between now and then? I understand conditioning. What are some of the other major differences in high school baseball?
I would say availability. I mean, these guys, they have so much opportunity to get into the gym, to lift weights, to get into I know like Hartford Sports, ASP, down in Edgewood. I mean, they have so much opportunity to go out there and to get reps, to get you know, acclimated to the game. And I mean, even back to, I mean, I graduated in 1998 from Joppatown, and I thought we had an edge from, I played for the Yankee Rebels. And I mean, Metro Ball, I want to say there was like 10 teams. And I mean, we were playing, 100 game schedules in the summertime. And I mean, now there's so much availability for guys that want to get better, want to play, want to get stronger, that are committed to the game and to really hone their skills. I mean, to see the Uckback Harford County is just so competitive in the Lacey tournament. I told my guys, I said, we're not going to invite, just walkovers just so we can win our own tournament. I mean, we had John Carroll, we had Old Mill came up, we had La Plata come up, we had Curley come up, and we had C. Milton. And C. Milton beat Curley 11-10. We beat Curley 12-2. John Carroll beat Old Mill 9-3 and beat La Plata 6-0. But it was just a great opportunity to showcase Harford County baseball and to get these guys out there and to hopefully get them some exposure. I'm learning as I go as a head coach. I mean, Coach Swanson told me, he said, it's a whole new ball game once you get up on top. And I'm like, yeah, sure, Coach. Yeah, sure. But Twitter, trying to get these guys out there, trying to get their names out there, get them exposure, get them recruited. It really is, year-long exposure for them, and just trying to do best by the players. I mean, ultimately, we just want to do what's best by the players, and I hope that my guys are starting to turn it around a little bit. Like I said, tomorrow's going to be a big test for us. Northeast, we played them, I want to say like 2 weeks ago. We've had trouble with the bats early. But we're starting, like I said, last weekend, we started to turn it around a little bit. We lost 7-1, but we had a 6-run inning. We let them have 6 runs in 1 inning. We lost 7-1. So they're on our turf. They're coming down to Harford County. So we'll see what we can do on our home field tomorrow.
So what time is that game tomorrow? Because I just want to put it out
3:30.
3:30.
3:30.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's cool. Yeah. And you guys are still part of that Upper Chesapeake Bay Athletic Conference. And I know when I was in college, that thing started, and I was like, okay, you got Cecil County and Harford County playing in this big league, because I guess Cecil County had a hard time getting their games across the bay, Yeah. So, but it's fascinating that league is still going on. It's like I think it's getting close to 15, 20 years, pretty much.
Yeah, there's a Susquehanna division and a Chesapeake division. I think we're in the Chesapeake.
Okay.
And there's like an upper tier and lower tier, the more competitive teams and other teams that are, still trying to, work things out just to keep the competition between. And it seems to work out really well. So it seems to have worked out. And like I said, I mean, the Uckback, it's been very, very competitive. Falston, we played them last Monday. They had a nice little winning streak going that thankfully we were able to break out of our funk, and we beat them. We beat them last Monday. We played a really, really strong Liberty team Tuesday, right before spring break.
Mm-hmm.
We lost to them 7-1. They had this boy Hodges. I don't remember. He was the 7 hitter, and he had 2 home runs against us and a line drive that just waist high that went over my center fielder's head, hit the center field fence, and
it kept rising. Like you hit a line, even there, hit a line drive, and it just keep rising, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I don't even think it rose. He just hit it where it was pitched, and it just went off the center field fence for a double. And I mean, he accounted, I think, for 5 of their 7 runs, and he was their 7 hitter. I was like, well, why is this guy batting 7th? But I think that's a team to watch out for. I think they're 2A Liberty.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about one of your players, Jack Snyder, who I saw. This is probably a couple weeks ago or something. I played Falston, beat him 5-2, and Falston is basically, if you look at it from Bel Air High School, it's only like 15 minutes down the road, 20 minutes, on a good day, down Route 1. There's not traffic, but just talking about Jack and how did, like you said, you're trying to promote these players to go off to D1 schools or Hartford Community College or whatever, and how difficult is that to get them to have people go, oh, okay, we'll watch your players?
Well, that's another element that I'm kind of learning about. And once I last summer I worked a little bit for Dynamic Baseball. They do a lot of tournaments around the region. Coach Swanson turned me onto that, and I was just like filming guys and trying to get basically in the tournament they would get trying to get like nice hits or nice pitching performances to get them out there and get them exposure. So I really wanted to, that's when I started to get into the Twitter world, so to speak. And I wanted to, get our guys out there. So, but Jack, he's amazing. I've coached him since he was a freshman, and he's, I would say, one of the best bats I've seen at Bel Air High School in my career. I coached the JV team. Like I said, I got stuck behind Coach Swanson for 15, 16 years before I finally got to take the helm. And, working with Jack as a freshman, I think he batted like 600 or 700. I mean, he was just off the charts, but very versatile player, great hands at third base. He's a pitcher. He's kind of fell into the relief role. Someone that we can really trust. He's stone cold, nothing phases him. He's kind of quirky. He'll do some kind of wild things. He's trying to pick guys off, but he's got a great bat. He had a home run against Curley. I had a double against Curley, a home run against Curley, had a homer against Falston. So his bat's really starting to turn around. And like I said, we struggle with our bats early, but we're starting to, if we can hit, I think we're dangerous. We got great defense. We got really, really almost too deep pitching. I know that's in high school baseball. That's almost like people like, what? But it's kind of tough to keep my pitchers happy. They want to start. They want the ball. They're gritty. They're ready to go. And the rain kind of messed up with my pitching rotation. But these guys are hungry, and I'm excited to see what they have down the stretch.
George, you got anything?
I'm trying to figure out where you guys are in relation to Ellicott City, because my nephew played high school ball for I think he played for Howard, not Howard. Howard High.
Okay. That's who Swanson beat in 2000, and because we were 4A for a minute in 2016, and they beat Howard at home. And I'll never forget it because my classroom would overlook the baseball field, and it was they had homecoming, and they wouldn't let the kids go to the game because they had homecoming that night. Howard did, and we accommodated Howard to play them at noon on a Friday. Mm-hmm. And so none of the kids were allowed to go. And I'm a horse racing guy. I love Preakness, and I took off because I was coaching JV at the time. And I learned that I didn't like to go to John's games because I felt like I was a distraction, and I didn't want to mess with what they had going on. So I was at Preakness that day on the blackout season day, and I told the substitute, I said, the kids can watch the game out the window. But it was a noontime start, and there was like no one was allowed to go, but Bel Air beat Howard to go to the state championship from Bel Air. So that was and they beat Quince Orchard that season in 2016.
You guys are just loaded with baseball stadiums down there as far as high school is concerned, because Howard County has 12 high schools in itself. So it's just crazy how loaded and stacked you guys are.
Well, and like I said, that's where when we started the Lacey, it's like we wanted to bring in some really top talent, and we wanted to showcase Harford County. Like I said, Falston's ranked now that at Northeast. They're Cecil County, but they're tops in the 2A right now. We got C. Milton, we've got North Harford, Falston, Patterson Mill has been doing Matt Roseland over there. He's been doing a real nice job with the sample size that he's been getting. He's been working those boys out. So it's really, really competitive in this suckback. There's no rest for the weary for sure.
All those kids got big league dreams with Baltimore being right there. So
yeah, and also you got Aberdeen up the road with the Ironbirds. So everybody, everybody, now 20 years ago, I didn't think baseball in Aberdeen would work 20 years ago. They used to play at Hartford Community College the first year.
Yep.
And they weren't even the field was not even like a ball field. It was like they just put some fences up and go, here we go, enjoy.
Well, have you been to Hartford Community recently? They've really.
I went there a couple years ago. My God, they upgraded that whole thing. It's
beautiful. They put that turf field in. They got nice stands. Actually, we play C. Milton Wright next week tomorrow night. we're doing a dual senior night, so we're trying something new. The head coach at C. Milton Wright is my assistant coach for the first 10 years on JV. We graduated from Towson together and coached at Bel Air for 10 years together on JV, and then he transferred over to C. Milton, and I cursed him because he got a head coach job before I did. So, but I think I just evened the season or even the series with him. I think we're tied. So the next Wednesday that'll be, and also they are our big competition to get out of 3A as well. C. Milton and us are in the 3A North, so it'll be come mid-May. It'll be even. The stakes will be even higher.
That's cool. So tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon, hopefully the weather is nice, and I think the wind might die down. Hopefully. So it's not like
practice was cold today.
Like George, speaking on the wind, did you see what happened in Chicago the other day when they were playing? I think it was the Mariners and White Sox. They couldn't even catch the ball because it was so windy. It looked like one of those like blooper reels. Like they're all trying to find the ball, and the ball like goes this way and went over the guy's head, and and these are guys that get paid more than we did.
Chris, I lived it. I was telling you, Saturday was crazy here. It was 45, 50 mile an hour winds with some gusts that were to 61 miles an hour.
Jeez.
You can't feel the baseball. It's like a changeup dropping out of the sky.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Coach, thanks so much for coming on. It's great to hear about what you're doing well at Bel Air High School, and it makes me feel happy that everything's in good hands, and hopefully I'll my parents are only around the corner from the school, so maybe I'll get up there before if I go up there for dinner, I'll stop by if there's an early game or something like that and see what's going on. But I can say the field, you guys are not playing on the field that my brother played on. It's a brand new one. They took George, they did was they moved the school and they turned it, and now the baseball field is where the old school used to be.
Hey, need a new field? Just move the high school.
Yeah. Hey, the new high school has an elevator. We didn't have one. We had one that was broken.
3 floors.
Yeah. And then the old joke of like they had I heard this joke one time. Somebody tells me like, oh, you want to go upstairs to the top floor? There's a pool up there. There's nothing up there.
We still say that.
Yeah. You don't like somebody to just go, take it to the third floor. What, does it go to the third floor, Coach? See you later. So, well, enjoy tomorrow. Good luck. The rest of the season. We'll try to get you on before Upper Chesapeake, championships or when state playoff starts.
You want to say state championships, Chris? He wants to hear that.
Yeah. Hey, you got to keep the tradition going. You got 96, and my brother won in '96, and then 2013 is the last one. You got to, every 7 years you got to win one. So
13, 16, we got 3. We have the most in Harford County, so
that's great, and it makes me feel good that the baseball team. My brother, who was a starting pitcher, and Mike Ennis was the coach, and I know he didn't pitch well, but didn't pitch all the time, but my brother was good, left-handed and right-handed, but hey, he blew his arm out. So
it'll get you every time.
Yeah. So thanks, John. Have a great rest of your week. Okay.
Well, Coach.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you all so much, and look forward to seeing y'all again.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Bye. All right, that's John Andrews, the head coach of Bel Air High School baseball, and it's great that it sounds great that the team is in good hands. I was just checking to see how they're doing. Yeah.
Yep.
My brother. I still remember that night my brother won the championship. He came home and his whole entire, I guess when you're a high school kid, you can't really like bring out the champagne like, your Orioles or the Mets or anything. You could spray people with lemons. Yeah. Yeah. It was lemons all over his car. It was hilarious. Yeah. So anyway, so it's 8:05 and here on the show, and thanks for joining us. This is the Chris Heidel Show. Today's date is April 19th, 2022. And wherever you are, and if you're in Indiana or in Houston, Texas, or here in Baltimore, thanks for joining us tonight here on the program. So let's bring in this guy. He's a regular to our program, but he is basically, I guess I don't want to say he's retiring, but he's not going to be writing a lot of articles. He's going to still do some NFL, but he's going to be doing some stuff that he wants to do. So we're bringing in John McClain here. Yeah, let's bring in John. Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Congratulations on your retirement. How are you doing? And are you having fun? What have you been doing since you've been retired?
Well, I've only retired from the Chronicle. I do 10 weekly sports shows and 10 weekly sports shows in 6 cities, including 4 in Houston on the Texans flagship that I've been doing since 1999. So when I'm doing podcasts, I've had 2 in the last 10 days that were an hour each, and I'm doing guest appearances like with you guys. So I'm staying busy.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We love having you on. The
My
last time we had you on was before the Super Bowl, so we were talking. What do you think about the playoffs? And what did you think about the playoffs? The Bengals.
And I know I picked the Rams to win it, right?
I think you did. I think I have to go back in my archives. Yeah.
I don't go back because I did not pick the Rams to win it. I can tell you that. I don't know who I picked. Tell you the truth.
Yeah,
but
we'll edit that, John. We'll just put it in there. We'll cut it out and go, "Hey, I picked the Rams."
Yeah. I wish I'd have picked the Rams. I wish I'd gone to Vegas to pick the Rams.
Exactly. I was reading your bio because I didn't get a chance to read how you started writing. You came out of college. You came out of Baylor University, and you started covering hockey. How did hockey get in your radar?
I worked for the Waco Tribune Herald for 3.5 years while I was going to Baylor. And then when I graduated, I came to the Chronicle in October of 1976 to cover the original Houston Aeros of the World Hockey Association. They were coming off back-to-back titles. They had Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey, playing with his sons, Mark and Marty. It was a huge story, transcended sports. Mr. Hockey leaves the Red Wings after 40-something years. And at the time, he was 44, and that was considered ancient. Tom Brady would scoff at that, but nobody's knocking down Tom Brady like they used to try to Gordie Howe. And I'd never seen a hockey game. And a friend of mine who had got me hired at the Waco Tribune Herald got me hired at the Chronicle and convinced him I could learn hockey. Second day I was here, I had to cover my first hockey game, and I had no clue. And I had a PR guy standing behind me. Okay, that's the blue line. That's the red line. That's a 2-line pass. That's a shot on goal. No, that's not a shot on goal. It's a shot. And my head was spinning. And then it was a few days later, I took off to go on a 2-week road trip across Canada and the United States. And I'd only been on one plane, and it was a puddle hopper in Texas. And so I was stunned at flying and go to other cities, and I'd never been anywhere outside of Texas other than Mississippi to see grandparents. And so I'm flying all over 2 countries, and first time hit turbulence, I was scared to death. I thought sure we were crashing. And one thing I learned, that when we hit turbulence, I would look at Gordie Howe, and Gordie always sat in an aisle seat. And he always worked a crossword puzzle. And he had these little granny glasses on the end of his nose. And he's a fine coach like the rest of us. And while the turbulence would be shaking the plane, I'd look at him, and he's always working that crossword puzzle. And if it didn't bother him, I'm thinking, it doesn't bother me. Think how much turbulence he's been in playing hockey since the 40s, right after World War II. And so one time we were flying a puddle hopper from Quebec City to Montreal to catch a commercial flight to across Canada to Calgary. And we had the worst turbulence still to this day I've ever been in. And players are actually screaming. And I remember sitting next to the team captain, Ted Taylor, and he said, "McClain, let me tell you something." And we felt like we were on a roller coaster. He said, "The only people worried about dying are people with families and people with money in the bank, and you don't have anything." And so I turned around to look at Gordie doing his crossword puzzle with his granny glasses on the end of his nose, relaxed as always. And I was going to be relaxed. And I turned and looked, and he was squeezing the arm rest so hard I thought they were going to break. Crossword puzzle had gone down to his feet, and he crossed himself. I don't think he's Catholic, but he did anyway. And I thought, oh my God, we're really going to die. Gordie, I was scared. And somehow we were able to survive.
Wow. That's a great story. George, you got anything for John? You're muted. He does this all the time, John. It's like one of those, funny stuff. Like he.
I do it all the time too, George.
Go ahead, George.
I'm on this computer way too much. Way too much. So, Chris, did you know that our guest here, Mr. John, was called the General?
I didn't know he was called the
That
General.
was his nickname. And I guess I'm going to ask, what is your best Houston Oilers story that you covered in the time? I know there's a difference between the Texans and the Oilers, but what is your best Houston Oilers story?
Involving the Oilers, I've had some great stories in my career, spending the night with Sammy Baugh on his ranch in West Texas, spending an afternoon with George Ellis at his office in Chicago, spending an afternoon with Bill Veeck in his office at Comiskey Park, spent time with Bobby Lane in his office in Lubbock. But when it comes to the Oilers, there were so many incredible stories during that period. And I'll tell you one, in terms of today, think about what a big deal this would be. In 1980, the Oilers had training camp in San Angelo, Texas, Angelo State University. It's way out in West Texas. It's about a 6-hour drive from Houston. And so we were there. And one Sunday, every camp, the people locally would have a fishing tournament, golf tournament, and tennis tournament where the Oilers would do those three things with local people that were big contributors to the university or were just prominent people. And then at the end of the day, everybody would meet at the country club and they would tally up who won the fishing tournament, who won the golf tournament, who won the tennis tournament. Back then, I played tennis, and I played in the tennis tournament. And I'll never forget this. And they were calling out names of people, and they called these two Oiler players and a local guy that was fishing with them. And they came up because they had won third place. And so the local guy wasn't there. And they called a couple times and they asked these players, so where'd old George go? Did he have to go home early? No, he drowned. He said, what? He drowned. What do you mean he drowned? He fell overboard this morning and drowned. He drowned this morning? Well, why are we just now hearing about it? Did you come in and report it? No, we wanted to win the tournament. And so this guy fell overboard. He drowned. They kept fishing because they wanted to win, and they finished third. And I remember writing that, and it was a note buried on an inside page. Can you imagine that today? Another time at training camp there, they had a 10-story dormitory on campus, and the Oilers would take it over. And back then, camp was 6 weeks. When I first started on the beat, it was 8 weeks because there were 6 exhibition games. But at this point, there were 4. It was 6 weeks. And so a lot of the media stayed in the local hotel, and I stayed up on the 10th floor with the ball boys and others because you had such good access to players. You'd go down the lobby, and players were always there. So instead of staying at a motel and going out and partying every night, I wanted to get to know the players and coaches. And right under us was the rookies floor. They had one to themselves. So one Saturday night, I heard this incredible commotion, chairs flying, everything screaming. I thought there's a fight. So I was on the end. I grabbed my notepad and my tape recorder, and I went down to the stairs, and I went in the hallway, and I see players running and screaming for their lives. And I walked down, they're running in their rooms, and I walked down into the area the common area, where you come off the elevator, and there's players on top of cabinets, tables. And I'm like, what in the hell's happened here? And all of a sudden, a leopard comes around the corner. And I run like crazy. I'm knocking on doors. Let me in, let me in. Finally, somebody let me in. So here's what had happened. Mike Rozier, a running back from Nebraska, who was their leading rusher at the time, Mike had been out on the town. There was a circus in town. He met some guy that had a leopard, and the leopard's name was Cowboy. So Mike cooked it up that this guy would bring Cowboy, and they would let him loose on the rookie's floor. So they had Cowboy, and I guess he was muzzled, of course, because he was still a leopard. The elevator doors open. All the players are watching the one TV on the floor, and they just turn him loose. And the poor leopard's scared to death. He comes off the elevator. He doesn't know what the hell. They're lucky that a player didn't have a heart attack or Cowboy got out of his muzzle. But anyway, I talked to him, and I ran to my room. It was right before deadline at 10:30, and I dictated a story, Cowboy Terrorizes Oilers Dorm, and I won an award for a story on deadline. And I'll never, ever forget that. And I could tell you guys stories like this all night involving the Oilers. In 1981, Kenny Stabler, no, 1980, they had traded Dan Pastorini to Oakland for Kenny Stabler. Still to this day, the biggest one-on-one trade of quarterbacks in NFL history, and it was a huge trade. So Snake comes to Houston right when the Urban Cowboy craze kicked off with the movie Urban Cowboy with John Travolta, and everybody in Houston and Texas wore big old cowboy hats with feathers, and everybody had boots. Right now, Dallas people dressed like that. They don't in Houston. We're more sophisticated. But back then, everybody did. And Snake was huge. And they were coming off back-to-back AFC championship games losses at Pittsburgh. And the Steelers went on to win the Super Bowl. It was what we know as the Love You Blue era here with Bum Phillips, Earl Campbell, Dan Pastorini, the quarterback. And so it was so much fun to cover. Everything that happened was a big deal on TV. There were talk shows, and in the newspaper, the Chronicle and the Houston Post. So one day, Stabler's not at practice. Excuse me. Kenny's not at practice. So he's not there. That's a big deal. Bum Phillips, coach, didn't know where he was. They called people. Did Snake call and give a reason why he's not here? No. So they kind of panicked. So the first thing they did was call the hospitals in case an irate husband had shot him. And then they called the police to see if he'd been arrested, sent somebody to his townhouse on the water, south to Houston. Nobody could find him. And it was huge. Front page in the Chronicle. Next day, Stabler comes back. And after every practice, he would take a shower and come sit in his little folding chair in front of his locker in a god-awful facility. And he would sit there naked and do his interview with us. And he's always smoking a cigarette. So everybody's around him. Snake, where were you yesterday? He takes, drawing his cigarette, a big puff, blows it out, and he says, guys, yesterday was Veterans Day. I'm a veteran. I took the day off. And Bum Phillips thought that was so funny. He rescinded the maximum you could find a player back then was $1,500 today. So Bum rescinded the fine because he got such a big kick out of Stabler's response.
Nice. That's a great story.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, John, we'd love to sit around and talk more about your stuff, but we're up against the time here. But thank you so much for coming on. And
it's my pleasure, guys.
We'll try to get you on during the summer. You know, I know we got tons of football, to talk about, and I know you're doing your podcast and all that stuff. And, we'll get you back on. Is that cool?
Sure, of course. You guys enjoy the draft.
All right, man. Have a great rest of your week, okay?
Thanks, John.
All right, see you.
Thank you.
See you. All right. We would love to keep talking to him, but it's like we're getting up against the clock. But that was funny. And I had to end it there. That was the perfect way of ending it, because it was like that story was funny. Yeah. Yeah.
This show ceases to amaze me.
I know. Hey, we get some great stories on this program.
We do.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, we got people who are like willing to talk about stuff, and it was nice that John stopping by, and we'll get him on during the rest of this, during the football season and all that stuff, because he's still around.
And Melissa's going to be like, how the heck do I follow up after that?
I know. Well, we're going to turn the page a little bit. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball. That's how we're going to turn the page a little.
Yeah.
The Orioles and Athletics are playing game 2 of I think it's a 4-game series. I don't think that is a 4-game series. I heard somebody today was like, check that real quick for me, because I'm like, how's it a 4-game series when there's a day game coming in somewhere?
They
I might
play tonight, tomorrow, and April 21st.
Okay, so it is a 4-game
Yeah,
series.
because they played last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like, it's been a long day for me because I've been working. So, so let's bring in Melissa Lockard, who covers the Athletics. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for joining us this evening, or good afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the witching
time
hour
zone.
here.
Yeah, check the time zone, Chris.
It's pretty cool that on the East Coast we got West Coast games, and they don't start till like 9:15. And for us, for our show, we're off at 9:30 Eastern time, and they're like, oh, we could talk Orioles baseball because they're on the West Coast. That's a great thing to do. But we can't do it here on the East Coast because this time right now they'll be playing at Camden Yards. It's like weird. So last night, big win for the A's on their home opener. What was it like? What was the crowd like there at the stadium? Was they excited? Because it looked like on Twitter, you kept constantly seeing pictures of people wearing cool shirts, and they were all ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a huge crowd, but it was a very, very spirited crowd. It always is. I mean, the core group of fans that show up to every game there are some of the loudest and most enthusiastic that you'll find around baseball. You've got the drums, you've got the shirts, you've got the banners out in the bleacher section there. They bring banners for new players every single year. So I think it's been an unusual start to the season for the A's because they were on the road for so long, and they were on the road on the East Coast playing three teams that don't necessarily have much to do with what happens for their whole season. So to have been gone that long, coming off of a short spring where they traded a whole bunch of guys, and then to come home finally, it's definitely different. But yeah, they were greeted by very, every new player had his own banner and on all that. So it's been a wild start to the year. And then of course, half the team went on the COVID list before the game as well. So it's been very interesting.
Yeah, you guys went to Toronto, and up in Canada, George, they have this new rule that if you don't get vaccinated or you don't get the Johnson or whatever, you can't play in Toronto.
I saw that.
Half these teams are finding that out right now. Like the Red Sox, they had to put 3 people on the list because they can't play in Toronto because you're not vaccinated. So it's weird that these teams are finding out, like, I guess we got to get this thing taken care of.
Well, I think in this particular case, there were 3 players on the restricted list when they went there, but there was one player that went on the COVID list on before this series started, and that's a different list. So that's one where there's actually something, that the player would have been eligible, but for perhaps a positive test or something, COVID side effects related. And then a whole bunch went on the COVID list when they came back, which would imply that they have had an outbreak now. Now, they're not speaking on this officially, so there's nothing official here. But I think what you're going to see is players aren't being tested regularly until they go to Canada and then have to come back to the United States and have intake testing. So I think I would be surprised if we don't see more of these from the teams that leave those series. That players that were asymptomatic and didn't know they had it suddenly get positive tests. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting subplot to the whole year. Just the fact that there is a different country involved, and so they've got their rules that everybody has to follow.
Exactly, George. Go ahead.
Well, to follow up with that, the same thing would have happened in New York, right, Melissa? New York just recently changed their rules for athletes, not having the COVID shot. So you would have had teams traveling to New York, either, playing the Mets or the Yankees, and they may not have been able to play because they had that whole rule for the basketball season about if you were an athlete and you weren't vaccinated, you're not playing.
Yeah, and it's there were different rules out here too. I think because baseball's played outdoors, that was not going to become an issue in the Bay Area, but certainly there are indoor restrictions still in place. So it is what it is at this point in the whole situation. But one of the players that was put on the restricted list on the way to Toronto was acquired from the Blue Jays in the offseason, one of them Matt Chapman trades. So I think perhaps we understand what might have been involved in that deal.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts. Like, you were going to play in Toronto, and you probably wouldn't even be playing that series anyway. You get traded, and like you can't play anyway. So it's like,
right, yeah, exactly. I mean, to play a whole 81 games, you weren't going to be eligible. That there's some thinking there involved. But anyway, so it's a crazy start to the year so far, but they have a winning record through 11 games, which I don't think anyone would have expected, regardless of what was going on. So I think props to them for getting through it to this point.
Exactly. Well, listen, I got to ask you, with the stadium out there, I know the Oakland Coliseum. I heard it's. I've never been there, but I heard stories. It's like a hole in the wall. There's sewage all over the place. Things are backed up. The Raiders told them, the Raiders left to go to Vegas, and what's the story with the team? Are they going to try to get that ballpark built? Because I think the city of Oakland needs sports. If they don't have it, they don't have the Warriors anymore, and they don't have the Raiders.
Yeah, so it's been about a 35-year odyssey. I think I grew up out here, and we were talking about a new stadium when I was a kid, and they're still talking about a new one now. They've made some progress. It's there's a lot of regulatory issues that go involved with building anything in the state of California. Where they want to build the new stadium in Oakland is right on the water. It's land that's owned by the Port of Oakland, so there's jurisdictional things you've got to go through because federal government is involved in zoning some of it as well as the city. But they're hoping to, if everything gets cleared, build a privately financed stadium right on the water there that, they feel like could really compete with Oracle Park across the bay. And it's something that would be part of a big project that would, they hope really revitalize an area of the city. I think much the same way that everyone's been looking to do since Camden Yards was built in Baltimore, right? That's sort of the model of how everybody would like to see their stadiums be built. And so there's a few more hurdles that have to be done. I think we'll know by the end of the summer whether it's going to happen or not. And if it isn't going to happen with this particular project, the chances of them staying in the city of Oakland are probably not that great. But they have moved this chance of getting a new stadium further along than any other one in the 35 years that they've been chasing it. So, we'll have to see. But it's definitely been a saga.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the starting pitchers tonight for the game. You got Cole Irvin, who's 1-1 on the season with the ERA at 5.40. He's a good left-hander. He has different pitches. I saw this video today. It's pretty cool. He has a four-seam fastball, a good changeup. I think he got Transmanzini out last year with it. Just talk about his development as a pitcher. And is that one of those players that the A's are bringing up all these young ones to try to keep the folks realizing there is baseball in Oakland?
Yeah, he was acquired last year, kind of a waiver wire deal out of the Philadelphia organization. He had been a bullpen guy with the Phillies in 2020, hadn't really been given much of a shot there. Injuries had opened up a spot for him in the rotation early last season, and he took it and really ran with it. Not overpowering, he's the kind of guy, like, I think you're sort of prototypical lefty in terms of being crafty, mixing his pitches well. He's prone to leaving one out over the plate and giving up a home run, and you've seen 4 already so far this season. But when he's on, he's really mixing things well. He locates well, and he's a really strong competitor too. And I think that's something that's really served him well because it makes his stuff really play up. So guys get on base, he kind of bears down, and he's fit in really well ever since he joined the club.
Yeah, and it seems like he is one of those young players that the A's could build around, because the A's are always been, since Billy Beane was there, they always build around young players, and I feel like that's their model, and I feel like everybody is. I think now Tampa Bay's doing that now.
Yeah, I think yesterday Mark Kotze, the new manager, talked about the A's way, and of course, he played for the A's in the mid 2000s. He's been a coach, he's been a minor league instructor as well, and one of the things he talked about is that it doesn't matter who's wearing the uniform. There's a certain kind of style of play that everybody buys into. There's a level effort, an effort level that they kind of ascribe to. And that just sort of the next generation of guys that come up just sort of adopt it pretty quickly. So, you lose some incredible players like Matt Chapman and Matt Olson, who, are two of the better players I've covered in the organization in the history, the last 10 years or so that I've been covering. And it's not to say that Matt Olson and Matt Chapman's are walking in the door, but they find ways to compete even without those guys. So that's kind of the ethos they've taken all these years, kind of a lunch pail sort of club. And I think that's what you're seeing this year.
Hey, they're not Mark McGuire or Jose Canseco. I know that.
Right.
But, yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that today. Like, I'm like, yeah, I remember the Bass brothers, back then, and and then you had Dave Stewart pitching with, George and I were like old school baseball. Dave Stewart was the man. Yeah, and the smoke. He was the man. And I actually interviewed him one time down in Florida, and it was pretty cool talking to him. I was like, wow, this guy was like a guy I watched when I was a kid. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, he's still the best stare in the history of baseball.
Yeah, exactly. George, you got a question for Melissa?
I was going to say, Melissa, the one thing that everyone always remembers about the Oakland A's is the World Series and the earthquake. What a crazy, I mean, you can't think, try and remember things from years past, but certain things stick in your head forever. And I had actually graduated high school in '89, and you just remember that you sit there watching TV. And I think it was an early game too on TV, because it wasn't a night game; it was an afternoon game.
It was at 5:02 p.m.
Yep.
Yeah, right now. Right now.
Around here, you remember the exact moment. Yeah.
And kind of walk back to where were you? What were you doing at that moment? Were you in that area?
Yes. So I was in 6th grade, and I was a huge fan. I mean, every statistic, every game. We were partial season ticket holders, so we had tickets to Game 2. So I had watched that. They had won that game. There was the day off, and then Game 3 was going to be in San Francisco. And I was supposed to be at volleyball practice, and I pretended I was sick so I could come home and watch the game. And as punishment, my mom was making me practice the piano. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, earthquakes are a thing. Like everyone who's lived here for any period of time has felt an earthquake. It's not like but this one was you could hear it before you felt it, which is pretty unusual. And, almost to the point where the keys looked like they were kind of moving by themselves. And it was a long one. So it was long enough that, we understood what was happening and did that thing where you freeze because you've been trained your whole life to do the right thing and you do absolutely the wrong thing, like running under the chandelier that's going like this and all the things they tell you absolutely not to do. But the funniest story is that my dad worked in downtown San Francisco. And this is back in the day where you don't have DVRs, you don't have it, right? Like this, you're home to watch the game or you're not home to watch the game. Right. Yeah. So I think I had called him and I was like, are you coming home to watch the game early? Oh, I'm working. I don't think I can leave. And I guess I convinced him. So he gets off the BART train and he's on the last train that was able to run through because he's in the parking lot of the station of the city we lived in. And all of a sudden he can see cars going up and down because when you're outside and you're not feeling a building moving, it's a little harder to know that there's an earthquake happening. Mm-hmm. But he could see the cars going. They all kind of look at each other like in the parking lot. I think something just happened here. And he goes to turn the radio on when he gets into the car and there's nothing. So now he realizes there's a big thing. So, we had one, some sort of sculpture or something fall that made a huge noise. We thought, half the house had caved in. We go over there and it's just the one thing. So we didn't sustain much damage, but where he was working was not far from when there was quite a bit of damage. Plus he wouldn't have had a car. So had he not come home early, it would have been pretty tough to get back home. So it's interesting how baseball can influence your life in very funny ways. Yeah. But yeah, you'll always remember where you are at a moment like that.
Yeah, I was out here on the East Coast. We don't get a lot of earthquakes, and it was a couple of years ago. There was one down in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm living in Perry Hall, Maryland, and I'm living in my apartment with my friends, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching the fish tank, and my friend has a piranha. Okay, that thing was doing a tsunami, and I'm thinking like, what the heck is going on here? And I'm like, did we just have an earthquake? And I'm like, and my buddy just on the phone, I was online with him. He goes, we just had an earthquake here in Havana Grace. I told him like, shut up, dude. I was like, enough. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we really did. So I tried to call my parents who were at the time down in the mountains of Virginia. And my mom goes, Yeah, we felt it. We just thought it was some truck going by, and we just didn't really care about it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the majority of them. It feels like maybe, one jolt like this, right? And you're kind of like a car hit the side of your house and you sort of move like that. But this one, it was like a wave. It moved, then it moved again, then it moved again. And there was just sort of rock. And I think it was aftershocks that hit immediately after the first one that made it feel longer. But yeah, it was. There's no Twitter, so there's something out here called earthquake Twitter, where as soon as there's any earthquake, everybody who's in that part of California, earthquake, and you can kind of crowdsource it. Radios were down, the phones were down, you couldn't get in hold of anybody, so it was it took a while for us to realize exactly how big it was and exactly what the damage was that was going on there, and then then of course it's several days of recovery after that for the area.
Yeah, and then play the game until 13 games later.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a freeway overpass. Speaking of Dave Stewart, he's a local hero here. He grew up in East Oakland, and always had a huge heart, very charitable guy. Anyway, so there's an overpass that took you into downtown Oakland that collapsed in the earthquake, and there were people that were trapped. And so for days they were trying to get to people there, and there were some incredible stories of people that survived much longer than you would have expected. But there's Stu. No, the game's canceled. Nobody knows exactly when we're going to get started again. Out there helping the people that are working through the rubble, doing whatever could be needed of him at that time, even just showing the support. And he will always be remembered as much for that as the 4 21 seasons that he had for the A's.
Exactly. Well, Melissa, I hope there is no earthquake tonight.
Nope. Yeah.
And George, if you jinx her, and I'm like tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up going, there was an earthquake in Oakland. You may want to call George and say,
right.
Thank you very much for jinxing us.
I'll call you and then my insurance.
Yeah, well, enjoy the game tonight. If you folks here in Maryland, you can watch it on Masson, here in Baltimore metro area, or if you're on MLB TV, you can watch it as well, and it's out there in the Bay Area. So I guess you're getting ready to hit the road and get to the stadium, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, enjoy the game. Thank you so much for the coming on, and hopefully it'll be a great game too.
All right, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Have a great
Thank
night.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that's Melissa. Yeah, Lockard, the staff writer and editor at the Athletic. They're out there in beautiful Oakland, California. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting. So you were 1989. I was here in Maryland, and I remember getting ready to watch the game because the next day I had to get up for school the next morning. And I think it was, and all of a sudden I just remember Al Michaels talking about, him and Tim McCarver talking about game 2, on the highlights. And then all of a sudden, like, Al Michaels goes, and there's an earthquake. And if you look at the picture, look at Candlestick Park, the outfield and center field, the pillar snapped. And they're leaning. So that took a long time for that to get fixed.
Well, yeah, and I remember them talking about having to go through and do an inspection of the stadium, and they had to evacuate everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Well, George, I'm going to let you bring this gentleman in because I like to have you bring people who are a former major leaguer. He played 10 games for the San Francisco Giants. He was part of the Mike Scott no-hitter in the end of the year. So when the Astros clinched the National League West and had to face the powerful New York Mets right after that in a crucial game 6-game series of the National League Series. So George, let's bring him in. Here's Phil.
Hi George. Hi Chris. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on. How are you doing? Nice to finally meet you on video because I talked to you on the phone, and I loved your stories the last couple of days you and I were talking about. So, so you played 10 games. Basically, it's almost like a cup of coffee, for Major League Baseball. Just talk about the day when you got the phone call saying, "Hey, you're in Phoenix. Hey, you're going to San Francisco. You're going to be playing tomorrow night." What was the feeling like when you got that call?
Well, it really wasn't a phone call. We were in AAA, and we were in the championship series, and we lost the championship series just on a fluke, routine ground ball double play. And most of our athletes had already been sent up to the big leagues, and it was ground ball to second, threw it to short, and the shortstop threw it into the bleachers. And that was the end of the game. And John Kruk was on the other team, and that was it. And our manager, Jim Lefevre, came in, and he was pretty quiet. He's pretty upset. He's very much of a competitor. He doesn't like losing ever. And he walks up and put his arm around me and said, "Hey, Phil, you're going to the big leagues."
That's cool.
And that was it.
Nice.
And then me and a couple of guys were sent up to the big leagues. They wanted us sooner, but they didn't want to take us away from the AAA team, the chance to win a ring.
Yeah, that's cool. And you played in the minor leagues with cool players. George and I were doing some research today. He was looking at, you played with Will Clark, you played with Edgar Martinez, in Tacoma, Washington. That was cool. You played in Toledo. You played all over the place. And I have one question to ask you. There's one year you had 10 home runs, and I think it was in like AAA. One of those 1988. You had 10 home runs. Why didn't they give you a phone call and say, "Hey, Phil, we need you up there"? What happened?
Well, I had 10 home runs in the first half.
The first half.
Half of the year, I was with the Seattle Mariners, and guys slid into me at home plate, and I tore a groin. The next month and a half, I could barely move. And when I came back, I was, it took a while to get, stretched out and get back ready to play. And then, the Seattle was not having a great year, and, they didn't bring a lot of us up. I mean, I had a real good year, but it wasn't good enough for them.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering about that because I was reading about it last night going, looking at your minor league stats. I'm like, okay, one year you had like 10 home runs. And normally to this day, I feel like if you have 10 home runs in minor league baseball in AAA, you're going to be called up in September like, hey, we need you to fill some holes. But
well, it's not necessarily about how many home runs. You got to look at home runs per at bat.
Okay.
So as a career, I think I hit a home run about every 30, 32 at bats, something like that. I was a switch hitting, line drive hitting catcher that had some power, but I made good contact. I just wasn't 6'4", 230-pound beast. So I just hit line drives over the fences. I didn't hit any fly balls over.
Exactly. Well, talk about your first major league hit. You and I were talking about it last night. You were in in Cincinnati. You get there, and some guy named Pete Rose. Everybody knows who Pete Rose is. The all-time hit king. And you're in the batting cage. Tell George the story, because this is a great story. I wanted to tell my dad today, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him about it.
Well, we were in Cincinnati, and Eric Davis, Eric the Red, that was a legend. Eric and I played against each other for years coming through the minor leagues, and we knew each other very well. And I'd thrown him out a lot, and there was times that I'd hit a home run in the game, and then he'd hit a home run in the game. We'd laugh about who hit it further. But when I got called up, Pete Rose came over to watch the new young switch hitting catcher, because it's pretty rare. And he walked up to the batting cage, the little, they call it a turtle. Mm-hmm. And I was taking my swings left-handed, and Pete said, hey, son. And Phil, I turned around, I looked, and it was Pete Rose talking to me. And he said, hey, can you hit a home run over the right field fence? And I said, yeah. And so I swung and hit a fly ball over the fence. And he goes, all right, turn around and hit right-handed. So I turned around and took a couple of swings right-handed, hit the first pitch over the fence. And he goes, wow. He goes, can you catch as good as Eric Davis said? Can you throw out everybody? And I said, I'm a pretty decent catcher. And he goes, well, I can't wait to see you play tonight. And, I asked Pete, I said, once I got out of the cage, I said, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me the bat that you got your last hit with. And he goes, I can do that. So he sent the bat boy in, got a brand new Mizuno bat out. My next time hitting, he said, get out of the cage. I walked out. He took two swings, hit a line drive up the middle right-handed, a line drive up the middle left-handed, walked out of the batters, out of the turtle, took out a silver Sharpie and autographed the bat to me. And that's one of my prized possessions.
That's awesome.
That's a great story. Oh my goodness.
Pete Rose was a great man. I know he's had his challenges with baseball and the gambling thing, but you know what? It's a good thing I'm not in charge of putting people in the Hall of Fame. He would have been there yesterday or 20 years ago. So
hopefully you'd have to face him running home towards you.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't stand in his way. No way.
Well, I think Ray Frosty learned the wrong way. Get out of the way.
Well, and guys that get ran over like that. I mean, Dave Parker ran me over. Kevin Bass ran me over. I got ran over a lot, but excuse me. You got to understand that I was strictly a catcher, and I was trained by my father, who was trained by Roy Campanella.
Wow.
So I knew how to protect myself at home plate, so I could take hits that nobody else could take because I made sure I was in the right position so that people bounced off or I tossed them. I mean, it was very rare for me to take a head-on hit where it was 220-pound guys just mashing each other. I mean, it happened once or twice where both our bells were rung, but for the most part, you could run over a catcher and not hurt anybody if the catcher did his job right.
Right. And also, you were telling me, when you said about Dave Parker, was that a big bus? Because he's the Cobra. Was it like one of those semis coming around third base, and you're like, oh crap, here he's going to plow right into me, and you saw your life flash before your eyes, and you're like,
I'll make you laugh. The first time Dave Parker walked up to the plate, it was balls in, coming down. I threw the ball down to second base, and Dave Parker was walking up to the plate, and I walked out, talked to Kelly Downs. And I said, Kelly, whatever you do not let this guy get on base. I said, he is massive. If he ran me over, I would never survive it. Mm-hmm. And then when I came back and Dave Parker says, what are you talking to pitcher about? I said, I told him not to let you run me over. And he goes, man, I'll slide. And, Dave Parker was a great guy. I mean, thank God, I can say proudly my first major league base hit was right at him in right field. Just a one hopper, and he picked it up and threw it in, and I just jogged into first. But if he'd have scooped it up, he could have thrown me out at first easily. I was not the thoroughbred base runner.
Yeah, you were telling me last night. You were like, here goes Phil.
Yeah, it was so. My legs were so shot catching. Now they didn't hurt. I just couldn't run.
Right.
I used to hit balls off the fences and get thrown out going to second base. Remember Frank Robinson one time told me that I don't care how many times you get thrown out going to second base on a ball off the fence. If you stop, I'm going to pull you out of the game. He goes, you have to go. And that was a lesson that I learned in 1984 when I was in spring training with Frank Robinson.
Wow. That's cool.
So I proceeded to get thrown out a lot. I love Frank Robinson.
Yeah, Frank was a good guy to baseball, and and he was he became the first black manager, and he turned the Orioles around that one year, and I think he did a good job with the Nationals too. I think he did a great job.
Great coaching staff. I don't know if you remember Kurt Moten. He was one of our minor league hitting instructors that Frank brought over when Frank came to the Giants. Kurt Moten was a legend in the minor leagues for us. He really knew how to help hitters get the most out of themselves and prepare mentally for the game.
Yeah. George, go ahead. You had another one for Phil?
I was just going to say, catchers aren't known for being the fastest player on the field, so I can definitely understand I was a catcher myself back in the day, and it's probably the most thankless job because, as you unfortunately learned, right, you're in one of the most vulnerable positions on the field, being behind the batter and receiving a fastball from a pitcher. So it's a thankless position, and the knees are probably the next thing to go after that, right?
Well, I'm 62, and I've already had just little bitty knee surgeries, nothing replaced or anything, just cleaning up the meniscus here and there. I tore up a knee when I was coaching Little League because, I was stupid enough to teach my kids how to do a pop-up slide, the 11 and 12-year-olds. And, that I learned a lesson, don't ever do that again. But no, my body's, held out pretty well, no major catastrophes. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Phil, I used to be a catcher too, and I grew up watching Gary Carter. And one time, and you talk about being a field general, I had to catch my brother one time in the game, and it was funny. I had to go to the pitcher's mound, and he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Can you just throw a strike, dude? Yeah, what are you doing?" Yeah. So I felt like I was Gary Carter talking to, Dwight Gooden for a couple minutes, because I'm so happy to be a catcher, and I got stuck, they put me in the outfield because I guess back then they put the ones that can't move around the plate real much, and as catchers. And I'm like, oh, I really want to catch. And my dad actually gave me a whole one game. My dad was my manager. He goes, "You're going to catch the whole game." I'm like, cool. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, and we played a lot of games, and I caught game after game after game. There was one time in the minor leagues, I think I caught 38 games in 29 days because of rainouts, catching both innings of both games of the doubleheader. You're familiar with Matt Noakes. Matt Noakes and I came up through the minor leagues. So we've known each other since he was 17. I think I was 18. Matt and I did a baseball clinic just a couple of weeks ago out in Palos Verdes. Matt's a great friend, and we talk baseball all the time.
Yeah, Matt Noakes. That's cool. Yeah, Matt Noakes. I was just telling my brother about that. Matt Noakes is one of your friends, and my brother goes, my older brother who loves baseball, like old school, he goes, Matt Noakes. I'm like, wow, I haven't heard that name in a long, long time. I was like, he's a friend of the guy coming on my program. He goes, that's cool, awesome.
Yeah, Matt Noakes, good guy. But I can tell you one of my proudest moments is that, and I can say this proudly, I think I'm the last catcher to ever catch Vida Blue in a game.
Oh wow!
And he was fun guy. I mean, he was really a fun guy. I mean, it was at the end of his career, and the Giants brought him in to pitch, and he didn't throw 98 anymore. But back in the day when, let's be honest, everybody throwing 100 miles an hour now, that's basically 95 back in the day. I mean, the numbers are off by 5-6 miles an hour. I think even more sometimes. I remember watching Nolan Ryan pitch in Astrodome, and I was in the bullpen, and I could hear his fastball. I mean, it sounded like a jet going by, and I was 200 yards away. I've only heard that twice since. I heard Rob Dibble do it, and then I heard Chapman do it in the ball game. Those are the only two guys that have thrown as hard as Nolan Ryan did. And Rob Dibble's arm blew out eventually. Well, everybody's arm's going to blow out eventually. You can only do the feat of spectacular for so long. But Nolan Ryan, man, he was the man. You should have heard him grunting, and I mean, that guy was a beast, and he's still a beast, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think he's still pitching like 90. I think he was pitching against the. He always does the University of Texas, and he pitches like batting practice once in a while, and he's still throwing low 90s. I'm like, that's great, dude. Like put yourself back in there. Yeah.
And I'm sure he aspirins up or Alev's up, or he's not going out there alone anymore.
Yeah. What was this commercial? He had to leave, or he had like, I got this, got to put some Bengay on, or something like that.
Oh yeah, I would venture to guess no catcher wants to get near the dirt when they go out to the mound if he was pitching right now, because he'd really be smelling from some chemicals that he had to take and rub on his body so he could throw overhand. But great guy, smart, intelligent, soft-spoken, great athlete.
That's cool. Well, before we talk about your company you started, the Sledgebats, my dad was telling me a story about Nolan Ryan. He was there watching, I think it was Pete Rose playing against Nolan Ryan when he was with the Mets. And Ryan struck about 3 times, and somebody asked, it was Dwight Gooden. And Dwight Gooden and Pete Rose goes, somebody asked Pete, like, Pete, what was the problem tonight against Dwight Gooden? And he goes, well, if you can't see, you can't hit it. What do you want me to talk about? It's like, if you can't see it,
Well, it's just like Nolan Ryan. When Nolan Ryan's curveball was on, when he was throwing his curveball first strike, you virtually had to go up there and guess pitch. And you're not going up there and guessing breaking ball. Trust me. You're guessing here comes 100 miles an hour. Later in his career, when he started developing that changeup, that's why his strikeouts usually went up, because his changeup was spectacular. You can't gear up to hit both.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. So let's talk about your company. When did you start this company? It seems like it's really cool. You were telling me that all the major league teams and a lot of minor league teams, now using your product. When did you start doing this? How did you start, inventing this Sledgebats?
Well, about God, I think it was 12 or 13 years ago. George Genovese, the scout that signed me and everybody else, was asking us, "Hey, Phil, you know what? I need you to come over and watch some kids and tell me whether or not they can hit." Because George's eyes were kind of going away on him. And he showed me a couple of ball players, and I'm not going to name a couple of them, but I think we discussed it. There's a Major League Baseball player right now that won an MVP, and he was 14 and a half, 6'4", 200 pounds with a 125 mile an hour bat speed, and he couldn't hit a 5-gallon bucket off of a batting tee. And I started developing the tool, kind of being pushed along by George, to figure out how we could make a hitter make perfect contact without changing a hitter's swing. And it took about 3 years before we figured it out. And I mean, I spent 8-10 hours a day. I mean, I've kind of got an engineering background. I can build just about anything. And so in the end, we started making Sledgebats for hitters. I got college All-Americans, #1 draft choices in the big leagues. The list goes on and on. College World Series champions, NCAA, first team All-Americans. The same thing in girls softball at the NCAAs. You'll see teams with Sledgebats out there. And some of the biggest schools you've ever seen. Some of the greatest coaches you've ever seen are using it. Sledgebats by hitting coaches in the big leagues. Major league players that buy Sledgebats for their kids because they know how well it helped them. So we started making them all different sizes for the little kids. And we've added to that. We've made batting tees now. In fact, we're one of the only companies in the United States that has a patent on a batting tee. Our batting tee is so unique, you'll never wear it out in your lifetime or your kid's lifetime.
Nice. And where can people get these bats? Because it seems like there's a lot of young players who still, I know we weren't like when George and I were playing baseball, we used to play in the streets and, we played all over the place. Now kids are playing Nintendo and all that stuff.
Right.
If there's a father or somebody who's looking for a birthday surprise, an idea, where can they find these things and teach their kids the right way of hitting?
Right. Well, it's not about teaching kids the right way to hit. It's about teaching, because I can't be there to make sure a kid learns how to hit. But our bats force a kid to make perfect contact. Not perfect contact in the way I want him to swing, but perfect contact in the swing that he has or that he's developing. So it really doesn't matter what the swing looks like. All that matters is when the ball is in the right place, you're barreling it up. There's 100 examples in the big leagues of hitters that look weird and different. I'll use Hunter Pence for an example. Nobody would ever teach their son or daughter how to swing like that. But what did Hunter Pence do for his entire career? He crushed the ball because he made perfect contact on the barrel. And what our bats do is it forces kids to make perfect contact in order to hit a line drive. And if they do that, and they have some coaching, now this little video you're seeing what we call a top hander. So a top hander is the only training bat ever developed that forces the kid to come down through the ball with contact. And when he makes contact, the reality is that mallet, the top of that mallet is slightly above his hand on contact.
Wow.
Now, that's not something that really happens in a game, because in a game, you're swinging so fast that gravity forces pull it down. But if you haven't developed that strength in your top hand, the reality is you hand a kid a wood bat with a poor top hand, he's not going to be making a difference on the field.
Exactly. I found
Guys with good top hands hit for power.
Exactly. Well, I found the website. So if anybody is watching right now who wants to get one of these great products, I think this is great for to teach your kids. And and I feel like when I was a kid, my dad taught me put me in the batting cage every day. Every day, it's like hit 10 balls and keep hitting until your hands turn bled and all that stuff. And and sometimes people need something different to make them enjoy baseball.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a sludge bat is something the kid can practice all by himself with putting tennis balls on, putting wiffle balls on. He doesn't need a big room. And the reality is he will teach himself how to square up the ball. No other creative device has ever been able to do what our sledge bats do.
Exactly. Well, Phil, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate you, coming on. I was glad to get to know you over the phone the last couple of days, and we would love to we'd love to get you back on and talk more baseball, down the road, when the season's, still ahead of, it's only been a week of the first 10 games. And what do you think about the first 10 games? What do you think about who's surprising?
Well, not as if I follow baseball as much as you would think I do. I'm busy running a company, but I do watch a game now and then. I was not happy that the Dodgers pulled Clayton Kershaw. I mean, he doesn't need a no-hitter or a perfect game under his resume to be a Hall of Famer. But my God, he's at the end of his career.
Yeah.
He normally blows out at the last couple of months anyway.
Yeah.
Let the guy have a shot at immortality. I mean, that's what it had been. And he's going to make it to the Hall of Fame either way.
Right.
But he may not ever have another game in his life where he's thrown 7 innings of no-hit ball on only 80 pitches. I mean, he may get 7 innings and no-hitter, but he might be at 120 pitches and he's done.
Right.
So I would have let him go. I would have walked out to the mound and I'd have let him go. And I can tell you, if Pete Rose was pitching and he had 7 innings of no-hit ball, you would never be able to drag him off the field. Nobody I played with, you could have dragged off the field. I don't care if it's the first game of the year.
Right.
You got a no-hitter going in 7, you know what? Nobody could get me off.
There's so much season in front of you at that point. He's going to have rest days and all this other stuff. For someone to be doing it that early in the season is just, give, like you're saying, give the guy a chance. And this is what we talked about. Folks nowadays are ruining baseball.
Yeah, the analytics and stats are crazy. And you know what? Whether or not people want to believe in that, and remember, everything comes full circle eventually. Right now, there's no running in baseball. It's grab a bat, throw the ball as hard as you can. Let's see who can hit the ball over the fence. Everybody's swinging up, and nobody's stealing a base. You know what?
Right.
Ricky Henderson would steal 200 bases today if he could walk across the field. I mean, because we got catchers in the big leagues that can't catch and throw. Pitchers aren't holding anybody on. Catching is as bad as I've ever seen it. I mean, not everybody. There's some good quality catchers out there, but I can't tell you how many times I've watched a Major League Baseball game and seeing a ball in the dirt with a guy on base and the catcher go to backhand it or give a half, effort to block it. I considered that a sin. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I ran to the backstop in my career with a ball getting behind me with a guy on third base. In one hand, 500-600 games, one hand. And most of those balls hit something and bounced over me. It wasn't because it bounced off of me or glanced off of me or I was too lazy to move to the left or to move to the right. I mean, I used to take pride in that. That's just not the case anymore. It's, you threw it in the dirt. You deserve to have a wild pitch. That's just wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Phil, thanks so much for coming on and have a great week. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. You have a great day.
All right. See you.
Thanks, Phil.
See you. All right. It's Phil. Can't do it. Try again. Ouellette. There we go.
Ouellette.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard. So anyway, that was Phil on the front. Yeah. So Phil, if you want to get one of his bats, there's the website. You can go there right now, and it could be a great Christmas gift, for somebody who wants to.
The style of the bat is crazy. The head of the bat, right, of the device is in the shape of a ball.
Right.
Okay. And it kind of forces you to make the right contact, because if you hit it with the other end, it's not going to work.
Exactly. So I know you're hitting the road there, George, because you got something you had to come up. So I guess I have to bring in the right-hander. I got my buddy Adam coming in here. Let's bring in the righty.
Hi.
Hey, Adam. Thanks,
First
man.
of all, I want to say this.
Yeah,
thank you for all the old school baseball memories from tonight. I remember the '89 World Series with one of the greatest San Francisco Giants players of all time, Will the Thrill Clark, number 25 for the Giants, a good first baseman. He and Rafael Palmeiro were known as Thunder and Lightning at Mississippi State under head coach Ron Polk. And I was in elementary school in New Hampshire when the '89 World Series took place, and I remember the earthquake game, with Al Michaels and Tim McCarver. So thanks for all the baseball memories tonight. It brought back a lot of good memories for me as a kid.
Yeah. Before we bring in Glenn, I want to do something. There's a lot of things people. I know a lot of people use social media. And people like you and me and George does. If you guys are a big fan of TikTok, you see on TikTok, you see a lot of people who have disabilities. They have other things. They have, they show stuff that's not appropriate, but it's on there. And TikTok is doing something that's not right, and I want to pull attention to it tonight. I know this is a sports show, but this is something I want to pull attention to. TikTok is taking all the videos off of people who have disabilities and telling them it's offensive.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
To me, that's not cool. And you, Adam, with the disability, you're autistic.
Yeah, I have autism, so it's like, I don't have a TikTok. I'd call, if you have a disability, that shouldn't affect you whatsoever. I have autism, but still, I've been able to go see the PBA Tour in person, work at a grocery store. Overall, I've worked at a grocery store for overall 20 years, and it's like, I have autism, and I can't help that. It's just the way I was diagnosed as a young kid. Before people really knew what autism really was.
Yeah. Exactly.
Think about the social thing, okay? And it's wrong in all aspects. They'll take a person, they'll shut down their videos because they have a disability, right? But they'll let them go and promote all this bad behavior, okay? So you got to see it for what it is. Just you got to figure out. There's got to be a way to get it out there. Is they got the priorities in the wrong spot, and in my opinion, it's not even. It's important to bring it out, but in the same sense, look what they promote. It's garbage.
Thank you.
It's garbage. So
thank you. I have other friends who, I have a good friend of mine who lives in Georgia, and he has Asperger's syndrome, which is, a kind of autism. It hasn't affected him at all. I mean, he loves motorsports. He loves video games. He loves, he loves watching, game shows. He has a really good YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, search, Michael Keller. He's a great guy. He's a great friend to me. So actually, there's a former NASCAR driver named Kyle Petty who actually has a thing called the Victory Junction Gang Camp, and for those of you who don't know, that's a place where kids with different disabilities can go, and have fun, if they have MS or autistic or something like that. And actually, Kyle Petty has a motorcycle charity ride he does every year to raise money, and actually it stopped him. It actually stopped here in my hometown of Waynesville, North Carolina, in the past, also in Asheville, North Carolina. So, that's pretty cool what he does.
Because you need to think about one thing.
Yeah.
The true message is, if TikTok isn't going to support folks with disabilities, you got to think about pulling your show off of that platform.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing the same thing too. And
yeah, I would agree, Chris. I would agree. I
totally understand that, and I'm going to, because I think it's wrong for what people do. And for me, I don't try to make a political statement, and I feel like this has had to be addressed because I have a girlfriend who has a disability, and I feel like people don't, they're banning videos for some apparent reason. I don't understand why. These people have, there's nothing wrong with, they got to get used. This is the sign that I was talking about it today at work. People got to realize we're just God's children.
That's right. That is correct.
And they're born with something that they can't control.
Chris,
that's right. That's absolutely right.
They promote the wrong stuff, and in the end, it's not the platform that you want to be on. So
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to play a video, and we'll get to Glenn here in a minute here. So here's a video that I found from these people who were talking about their message. So here it is.
TikTok, you have to stop. Stop banning accounts of people with medical conditions.
Stop banning accounts of people with unique needs.
Stop banning accounts of creators with disabilities.
Suppressing our voices because our lives appear different is unacceptable.
Your community guidelines need to be equitable and account for differences.
Everyone should have access to this platform.
Before you report an account, take a second to watch a couple videos and learn about our lives.
We need platforms like this to promote diversity, inclusion, and acceptance.
This space allows us to connect with other people in similar circumstances.
We will not be silenced.
Please help us get TikTok's attention, because only they can put a stop to the discrimination that's happening on this app.
We want to hold TikTok accountable for their stated values of diversity and inclusion.
Share this with TikTok to encourage them to stop supporting ableism.
Tell them to stop silencing our important voices.
And please help us by signing the petition that's linked in our profiles.
Thank you for helping make TikTok more accepting.
And thank you for making this world more inclusive.
All right. So if you see at the bottom line there, you can visit the website www.change.org/TikTok. Stop banning disabilities, Chronicle, all that stuff, and you can, vote. They want to get a petition signed, and I'm going to help them out the best we can. So, in the coming weeks, we'll get some of the people come on, and we'll see what we can do. So.
Gentlemen.
Yes, sir. It's called. See you later, George.
Thanks for coming in relief, buddy.
Yes, sir. Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Take it easy.
All right, let's get turn the page here and get back to some sports here. Let's bring in George here. Glenn. Hey, Glenn. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on. We just haven't talked about it. Somebody was telling me about.
Sounds good. Yeah.
It's just sad what they do with those videos. Disabilities.
Well, I don't know too much about it, but I'll tell you, I certainly support the entire disabled community, and appreciate getting the message out.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Orioles. Game two in so last night. What do they got to do tonight to get on the winning track?
I'd suggest trying to get a hit with a runner in scoring position, but they're not very good at that. It's tough. The funny thing being, the thing that we all thought we were going to complain about this season was going to be the pitching, right? And especially after John Means goes down, where's the pitching going to come from? Well, as it turns out, the starting pitching has been decent. The bullpen, for the most part, has been outstanding, save for obviously the sixth inning last night, and a lot of that fell on the defense. Interesting that they are trying to still figure out they're going to play Gutierrez tonight at third base to try to help that out a bit, but they got to score runs. They have to score runs, and that's a bigger problem that goes beyond, we all know this season's not likely to be terribly successful, but there are core pieces that are a part of this that they need to continue to see produce and come up with big hits moving forward to figure out what their role is going to be. So, yeah, I'm not trying to sound too simplistic, but it's as simple as that. They need to deliver when they have the opportunity to score runs, and whether or not they're winning games, it's frustrating. You'd prefer to see them win games, but they need to show that that's what these players, the Cedric Mullins, the Ryan Mountcastles of the world, are capable of doing moving forward.
Adam, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for talking about people with disability. I'm actually autistic. And actually, April is Autistic Awareness Month. So, that's why I'm wearing blue. And since you're, I gotta ask you about the commentator with the Orioles, Melanie Newman. She does great things with the Orioles, with Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. You can catch her on Major League Baseball on Apple Plus on Friday nights. She's worked in other sports, other different networks. So, what do you think of Melanie Newman? As a broadcaster with the Orioles and with Major League Baseball in general.
I think she's done an outstanding job. I think that in her first season, there were some folks in town that were fairly critical of her, but it wasn't just her. They were fairly critical of and I think we're starting to understand 3 years in how tough it is to do these road games from sitting in a studio. And, Matt Vasgersian, for example, is one of the best broadcasters in all of baseball. And it's been a hellacious year for him doing Angels games away sitting in his house in New Jersey and not being at the games. So I think that some of the criticism early on that Melanie felt, it was related to the difficulty of doing this job right now where you're not at the games when the games are on the road. And that's very frustrating. And hopefully the Orioles will join the majority of other teams who have fixed that and gotten their broadcasters back out on the road very shortly. But Melanie is outstanding. I think we all know it was long overdue to see more female representation in broadcast booths. It's almost insane that it's 2022 and we're still having firsts in this department. That Melanie's still the first to do a national broadcast. It's nuts. There are so many talented female play-by-play voices, and Melanie's earned her spot. She's earned her opportunity. She does a very good job, and I'm happy for all the success that she's finding and more opportunities to be on a national stage.
Exactly. Well, tonight, pitching. Chris Ellis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does he bring tonight? Because he's been thrown into this thing right away.
Yeah, Chris Ellis actually pitched fairly well at the major league level a year ago in a very small sample size, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of him in any way. I think he is someone that has an opportunity to hold a spot for a while, because we all know the Orioles don't currently have 5 starting pitchers, and until they either make a move to grab a Kyle Bradish or to eventually bring up Grayson Rodriguez, they're going to need someone to go out and pitch every 5th day. So Ellison, 6 starts a year ago, he pitched to a 2.49 ERA. He pitched to a 1.224 WHIP a season ago. Those are really respectable numbers, again, in a very small sample size at the big league level. So, he's this is not a young kid. This is someone who's 30 years old. Like, this is somebody who is every time he gets back to the major league level, he realizes this could be his last opportunity to pitch. So I expect that he will take this opportunity quite seriously. And the Athletics are depleted. We know they were rolling out a lineup that only had 1 or 2 like legitimate major league players last night because they had a COVID issue over the course of the weekend. I don't know yet. I haven't looked to see who's back for tonight. I haven't seen the lineup, so it might be that they're starting to get some of their guys back at this point. But Chris Ellis is somebody who wants to be a major leaguer and is not going to get a whole lot more opportunities. And, we've seen some decent things from him. Do I count on him to be in the rotation for the rest of the year? No, I don't. But I think he's going to push very hard to try to keep a spot.
Yeah. Well, talk about Cedric Mullins. He's slow start right now. That home run. That clip. That was pretty good.
Yep.
Let's talk about him. Right now.
I think that a lot of us had talked coming into the season about whether or not Cedric might find himself pushing. That what he did a year ago, everybody knows, absolutely remarkable, right? But that being said, in order to prove yourself as that player, it needs to be more than just a 1-year anomaly. So I think that there was a lot of concern about whether or not Cedric was going to push a bit too hard at the beginning of the season. And, have we seen a little bit of that? Obviously, he's come up with some big hits. You mentioned the grand slam, of course, on opening day, the 2-run single at Camden Yards. He's had 2 of the bigger hits of the season for the Orioles. there's not a lot to choose from. So, anybody who has a big hit is probably had one of the biggest hits of the season for the Orioles. But I'm not going to worry about it too much. Also, again, bear in mind, he was somebody who proved he's a home run hitter, a 30 home run guy a year ago. As the weather gets warmer, the ball's going to fly out of the ballpark a little bit more. We know that that's true. So I wouldn't overreact to anything too much. I do think it's possible he came into the season pressing a bit to try to prove that what happened a year ago wasn't a fluke.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, tell everybody about your show. Where does people can watch you? You're on PressBox.com, right?
Yeah, PressBoxOnline.com. And if you want to watch us, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports or YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline every day, 10 to noon. We had Grayson Rodriguez on the show today, of course, the Orioles' top pitching prospect. And, we do a lot of storytelling on our show tomorrow. We're going to be chatting with Thomas Booker, who's going to be a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. He's a defensive lineman from Stanford, originally went to Gilman. It's a great local story that I'm not sure everybody is familiar with. So we're looking forward to telling his story tomorrow and chatting with him, some more people, fans in this area. He just worked out with the Ravens recently. He grew up a Ravens fan. He owned everybody's jersey. It would be an incredible story. I'm not saying the Ravens are going to draft him, but what a story it would be if they did. And so I'm looking forward to chatting with him tomorrow on the show. So we do that type of stuff. We like to tell stories, and it's a lot of fun for us every day, 10 to noon. And you can watch it again, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports or YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Yeah, and that guy, he transferred to Stanford. I try to get him on this show. Yeah, when he played Notre Dame.
Oh, he's been out there for a little while. Maybe he transferred to Stanford, but he went to Gilman. He was born in Ellicott City, a Baltimore kid his entire life, and what a neat story it would be if he ended up back with the Ravens. Again, I think they still have a need defensive line wise. I know they brought back Michael Pearson, Calais Campbell, but in Justin Madubuike looks like a rock star, but I still think they could use a bit more depth, and it wouldn't stun me. He's also somebody that can help out a little bit more as an edge rusher from the D-line. So, just a name to keep in mind. And again, no matter what, a cool local story.
Yeah, and plus we got to do a telethon for Lamar Jackson. We need some money for him.
Take that. Well, apparently he doesn't want it, which makes no bloody sense, and I'll never be able to figure that out. But bless him, I guess. He wants to win a Super Bowl first. May that be the case.
Yeah, real quick story to tell you. I met him down in Louisville, down in the East a couple years ago, and he was so quiet. I was like, all right, I'm on the show, and I'm like, where are you? How you doing? And all that stuff. He wins the Heidel. He's talking to everybody. Just like all over the place. I'm looking like, what? He's like, butterfly now? He's like, yeah, talking. And it was pretty cool when I saw him at the end of the year. And I said, you're going to the NFL. He goes, I can't tell you. I'm not ESPN. Yeah.
Man.
Like 2 days later, he's going to the NFL.
Yeah, that was the worst kept secret for sure.
Yeah, I know.
Look, he's a remarkable. Every interaction I've had with Lamar has been extraordinarily pleasant. He's a really fascinating cat. He's one of the more interesting. It's not just that he's really good. I think he's one of the more compelling and interesting athletes in Baltimore history. So, hopefully,
and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
All right, see you. All right, that's Glenn Clark from Glenn Clark Radio. You can watch that on PressBox.com or on Facebook. And yes, there was a lot of reverb there, dude.
Yeah, it's called. I actually have Major League Baseball TV on my iPhone, and right now the Mets are pitching a one-hitter against the Giants.
Oh, good old Matt Scherzer pitching.
Since you're a Mets fan, obviously you can't watch tonight, so yeah. I mean, I got to keep you informed. Since you're a Mets fan, have to keep. I gotta keep you informed, Chris.
I appreciate that, dude.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Well, we'll be here next Tuesday. We're gonna wait for Mike Rhodes was supposed to log in from Lancaster, the newspaper up there in Pennsylvania, because Penn State's doing their spring game. But next Tuesday night we'll be here at 7:30, and I guess we'll start covering the NFL draft because the NFL draft starts in 2 days afterwards. Big Thursday night. On Las Vegas, Nicole and I are going to go to the stadium down at M&T Bank Stadium for the draft party. It's pretty cool looking.
Cool. Yeah. I mean,
so
I
she
can't
gets a
believe.
chance to
Yeah.
watch your Ravens, you pick a pick and meet some former players and all the food you can eat. And so we'll be here next Tuesday night here on the program. So in the meantime, you probably saw this new league came up this week called the United States Football League.
I did. Pretty cool to see it. Pretty cool. I remember the XFL, the World League, the World League back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, the old USF, some of the original teams, Herschel Walker, I believe, was on the New Jersey Gamblers. So, all the games were on ESPN. So, to see USFL on Fox and NBC is pretty cool, I gotta say. Nice to see some football in the springtime.
I got an interview I did last week. I didn't put it on the show because last week we had such a hectic show with different people and weird people and and all that stuff. And I think you probably know what we're talking about. But this guy named Ace lives in Houston, covers the Gamblers. He does a podcast, an unofficial podcast for the Houston Gamblers. So I'm going to play the interview. Hopefully we'll get Mike could join us shortly, and if not, we'll get him on next week after the spring game. So here is the interview with Ace from the Pocket Aces, a unofficial Houston Gamblers podcast. All right, good evening, everybody, and we're getting ready to talk to Ace here. He's part of the Pocket Aces, a unofficial Houston Gambler podcast. He does a lot of stuff with the United States Football League. Yes, the United States Football League is back, folks, because back when we were kids, when I was a kid, it was like 1984, 85, and in 86, some guy named Trump took over and kind of ruined it. So this is the second, the rebirth of the league. So they're going to be playing this weekend, all down in Birmingham, Alabama, for the first 3 weeks, Ace, and then they move back to their home fields, or what's the scoop?
No, the entire first regular season, and then the postseason is going to be played in Canton, Ohio, in the Hall of Fame Stadium, where they play, the first NFL preseason game every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really exciting. Every game is going to be in Birmingham this year. All the players are there. All the teams are there. Coaches, they're all staying in like hotels unless they got an Airbnb or something or family there. And the reason that they're doing that is because they tried to learn from the failures of others, because if anybody who pays attention to spring football, they basically have all failed. So they're trying to learn from the failure of others. And the XFL ended up going under when COVID, hit. Right. And so in being all in Birmingham, if, another strain happens, a quarantine happens, they can just hunker down and quarantine in Birmingham and not have to shut down the league. They can finish it out.
That's a good idea. I thought it was under because of COVID stuff, because I know a lot of people are, everything's getting technically better, but now we're having that problem again with the other variants. And I'm thinking like, okay, they're just going to stay in one area and keep everybody in a bubble and, and then like nobody leaves until the season's over. And I think that's a smart idea. And plus what you said, it keeps the cost down, and the only thing they have to do is drive on a bus to go to the field, and that saves what, money?
So much money. Yeah. Having to travel for games, all of that. I think all the teams, each team is sharing a practice facility, which I think is probably a college field. I've seen a few college fields. They're sharing it with another team. So, one morning, one team will go out in the morning, the other in the afternoon, and then they'll switch. But yeah, they're all in Birmingham, and it's really smart because until they get owners for each team, it doesn't really make sense to move to a city, so it gives them time. They already have the contract with Birmingham, and they don't have to rush contracts with other cities and pay too much money. They can, really figure it out and move to the cities as owners, and contracts with stadiums and cities come. So it really cuts down on cost, and it kind of eliminates a lot of the biggest hurdles in the beginning of starting a league like this.
And plus it also showcases the league, and plus they have these, like you said, potential owners. And then you go, oh, and like somebody from Philadelphia might be like, oh, we could actually play a football game during the springtime. Because I had my friend just call me a couple minutes ago. He goes, where are they playing? I'm like, I don't think they're playing in Philadelphia this year, dude. I think they're probably playing in one area, and and I guess they're in Philly. You have to find what field to be on, because I don't think Lincoln Financial Field is going to let the team in the United States Football League that you ruin that field. I'm thinking maybe Villanova, Temple. Temple plays at Lincoln Financial Field, so it's like it all depends on what they want to spend money on.
Yeah, and it just depends on. I think a big thing is seeing how the first season goes, because if that goes well, then it shows that it does have the potential to make a lot of money and help players, move back into the NFL, get real in-game tape. So after the first season, if it does go well, I think you're going to see a huge boom in moves that the USFL is making as far as ownership, as far as moving teams, as far as merchandising, marketing, all of that. It's going to boom if the first season goes well. Yeah.
So what's your feeling like when you heard the Houston Gamblers were back? Because the only thing I knew about the Gamblers was Jim Kelly was the quarterback. That's all I knew. So, and then he had his rights with the Bills, and he goes, I'm going to go to Houston and play for a couple of years. And then he came back to Buffalo in 86, 87. So it's like, okay, I guess that's pretty interesting. But, what did you feel like when you first heard about the Gamblers? You're like, okay.
So I knew about the old league. Obviously, this is a completely separate league. It's none of the same ownership. It's a totally new league. But they were able to buy the trademarks and the rights to all of the team names and logos, all of that.
Nice.
So they wanted to, come back with the recognition and, some kind of history that people could buy into and a little bit of legitimacy. And I was excited. I was super excited. What they had back in the day, it really could have been a big thing. It got ruined by some greed, some bad decisions, all that stuff. But it could have been, honestly, the NFL in the spring. And it wasn't. But now that it's coming back, I got super excited. I made my page, Pocket Aces _USFL on Twitter. And then I got reached out to by these two guys, Hype and Webb. They were making the USFL network, and they were like, hey, do you want to come on, be one of our contributors and be the Gamblers representative? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And it blew up from there. Now we talked to a number of executives within the league itself. We get emails and press releases from them. We talk to players, coaches, all that stuff. We have an interview tonight, actually. So it's been really exciting. It's been a whirlwind. It just took off, man. And so I'm super excited. The Gamblers, I think they have the best logo. I think the jersey.
All right. Oh, whoa. Sorry, there, Adam. Didn't know you were taking a nap.
No. I remember, it's pretty cool to see, to have the USFL back, and all games on national television. So, if it's not on NBC, it's either on Fox or FS1 or different variety.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see what the football schedule is for the United States Football League this weekend. Let's see what the schedule is like here. Hopefully it'll work up. Come on, computer. Yay. Okay. See the full schedule coming up here. I guess they're in week 2. All right, week 2, you got Michigan taking on New Jersey at 8 o'clock on USA. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia are going to be playing each other at noon. That's a battle of the Commonwealth in Birmingham, Alabama. That's on Fox. The Stallions taking on the Gamblers on the 23rd at 7 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. And then New Orleans taking on Tampa at 3 p.m. on NBC on April 24th. So that's your schedule there. So let me pull that up for you folks if you are looking for some football action. NBC, Fox are the ones who covers that wonderful program. So here it is. Here's the schedule. So anyway, folks, we're going to wrap it up the show. Adam, thanks for coming on to fill in.
Of course.
Thanks for helping me out with that.
Also, let our viewers know that this weekend on FS1, you can catch the quarterfinals for the PBA playoffs at the Kegel Training Center in Lake Wales, Florida.
Yes.
If you haven't had a chance to watch, there were some upsets. Sean Maldonado, known as Candyman, he bowled with a back problem, and he advanced. The top 2 seeds are gone.
Okay.
Ace Belmonte and the Rio del Bill O'Neill. It's can be interesting to see if they come PBA playoffs crowning.
Exactly.
And, Glenn Campbell. Wow.
Yeah. On this day in 1969,
Wow.
Glenn Campbell had a #1 song with Jimmy Webb's song Galveston, and it made #4 on the Billboard Hot 100. So we're going to leave you folks with that tune, and we'll see you all next Tuesday night at 7:30, and we'll talk about the NFL and talk about the PBA playoff. We'll talk whatever we can get on the program. I think Pat Combs, former Philadelphia to leave pitcher, will be stopping by. Hopefully, we'll talk to him about Phillies, because the Phillies are taking on the next weekend.
Broadcaster for the Baylor Bears out there in Waco, Texas, for ESPN Plus.
That's cool. Awesome. So here is what's going to leave you with Galveston by Glenn Campbell. Have a great night, everybody.
Galveston, oh Galveston, I still hear your sea winds blowing. I still see her dark eyes glowing. She was 21 when I left Galveston. Galveston, oh Galveston, I still hear your sea waves crashing, while I watch the cannons flashing. I clean my gun and dream of Galveston.